one TikTok that do it into.
Oh yeah.
Okay. No one worried about that too much.
Documentary.
This is just for me, like part of the intention with doing this as part of my role is to grow in the skill of speaking publicly and like conveying information in a concise and helpful way. So I want to be able to watch game film and see what I did well and did not do well. But I practiced with filming yesterday. Like he gave me lots of like specific feedback, so I'm ready. I wish I had more. Okay, you start small, right? All my like
presenting.
yeah.
Ooh.
All my life goals involve like speaking in front of crowds. So we're starting small.
Are you standing up or
Yeah.
sitting down? Okay.
To embody the experience. Let's go. How did it go?
Oh, it went okay.
Okay.
It went okay. It wasn't awful. It was not amazing. But it went okay.
We're between awful and amazing.
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, welcome to amazing. I just really set the bar high. Wow. We'll be welcoming the spirits of Kara and Courtney.
Oh my gosh. Amazing.
This is for them. Let's go. You guys gotta run it. Guys, I'm so sorry. I'm here. Yay! Wonderful. Without further ado, you. Welcome. The silent influence. Harnessing the power of subconscious fitness principles. Today we're not talking about influencers you can meet on social media or YouTube Shorts or TikTok, but influencers that find their way into all of our lives, whether we know it or not. So I'll introduce these three principles and invite you to join me. Now, I'm not an expert on this topic, but that's good news because you guys, if you wanted to follow a similar path, could read books that I've read. So these are different like personal development books that span very different disciplines. There's like a money book, a marketing book. This one's about leadership in the church. But kind of across all these pieces of content, three principles have emerged to me as being consistent no matter what the discipline is. So I've been able to distill that down for you today and talk about them. Now let's talk about why I say subconscious principles. What does that mean? Well, these principles are like the laws of nature. So if we think about the law of gravity, that's subconscious to you before you encounter it in grade school. And even then, it kind of feels like, duh, like I knew that already. So whether or not we're explicitly taught about the law of gravity, it can entirely govern our lives and the workings of the world. And I would say that these principles are similar in the fact that they're active in your life, even if maybe you don't have taught about them. Basically, I wish someone had taught me these things because they're true and influence the world. Whether or not, I don't know. I just wish I had learned these earlier in my life. Let's meet the silent influencers. This is leverage. Leverage reminds us that you get more for what you put in when you use him. Leverage involves using resources such as money, assets, influence, those kind of things, to amplify the potential outcomes of an action, investment, or decision, often aiming for greater gains while being aware of the increased risk involved. Basically, you get more for what you put in, like I said a second ago, achieving greater returns or rewards by effectively using resources like capital, which is like money or employees, human capital, technology, so like Adobe, like if you're trying to achieve an outcome and you use the right technology, that can help boost the result. Expertise, if you're really good at something, you get more for what you put in, which is effort and time. And strategy, if you're doing the right things, it leads to the right results. The ancient philosophers knew this principle well, like Archimedes has said, "Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the world." What does that mean for us today? Well, here are some examples in life that we're going to kind of think about for each of the influencers. When it comes to leverage, walking with the Lord, the local church, the Bible, and the encouragement of friends in Christ bring maximal output for the input of our time and relational energy. So if you take your time and energy to the body of Christ, the church acts as leverage to the input of that, of your effort and your time, because the Lord has provided for it, like that lever, like we saw in the image before, to lift you closer to God. In relationships, parents, mentors, counselors, and coaches are people in our lives that are a form of leverage, as we utilize their experience to maximize our outputs. So say I don't know how to do something, but I go to my mentor or my coach and I say, hey, like, what do? I take their experience and apply it to my situation to get an outcome that I desire versus just trying to figure it out on my own and not having those relationships as leverage. So we can go to parents, counselors, that kind of thing, especially if you're not good counselors and they know what they're talking about. That helps. Additionally, expertise in how you relate to others is a form of leverage that will carry you far in social and familial settings. I think it's kind of taboo to like say, oh, I'm trying to grow in my relational expertise and like learning how to interact with people, because we always just want to be ourselves and like show up authentically. But if it's something you commit to and you want to grow in, that can help you as you navigate new settings with people. And then lastly, in work, leverage looks like expertise, like we talked about, technology, also Adobe capital. So when we say we want to complete a project, but we need budget money for it, that money is the capital in which we like put our effort behind and it achieves a result. Network, that's like people you know, like across the university, like your friends, or even in the industry at large. And strategy, so doing the right things to achieve the right result. In a creative team, we can leverage platforms like social media, software tools like Canva, which this PowerPoint is made on, brand identity, and consumer behavior to accomplish objectives. So those things that we talk about as being important are a form of leverage. But how about you? Now it's time you get to kind of share. One has something outside of yourself helps tip the balance in your pursuit of a meaningful result.
Really good question.
Yeah, it can be a big thing like, oh, my this life decision. But it could be a small thing like, oh, I figured out that making my coffee at this time actually gives me the optimal energy to complete my quiet time and not fall asleep during it or something like that. It doesn't have to be monumentous. Crickets from the rain.
Just processing.
Yeah.
We'll share momentarily.
I feel like the first thing that came to my mind is like exercising. like I'm way more likely to go and do it if someone else is there. So like the network or the relationship, like for partially for accountability, but then also like you have somebody to talk to and like keep you distracted and encourage you, and you like don't want to like go heavier or like run longer or whatever. So I feel like people, honestly, people is pretty much my answer for anything. But like the first thing that came to my mind was like consistently going to the gym or like exercising.
Yeah, like a good motivating relationship is a form of leverage even when it comes to going to the gym.
Yeah.
We think about that with networks, but that applies there as well. So. Anything? And now we can move on. Now, let me introduce you to opportunity cost. Opportunity cost carries with him all of the benefits that we miss out on when we make a decision. Opportunity cost is the value of what you give up when you choose one option instead of another. It's, like I said, the benefits you miss out on when you say yes to making a decision. Choosing one thing fundamentally means saying no to other potential outcomes. This is something Patty has re-emphasized to me in my life a lot. But on the other hand, saying no to something means saying yes to the opportunity available in that option. So every choice has both an opportunity, a cost, and an opportunity cost tied to it. We think a lot about like the pro and con list. That's like the opportunity is the pro, the cost is the cons, but there's a hidden column there, which is the pros of the thing you're not going to do. It's almost this like imaginative exercise where you have to think, okay, if I were going to say yes to this thing, what does that mean that I'm missing out on? And you have to consider that as like almost like on the tally of the pros and cons. In his book, Atomic Habits, James Clear emphasizes that this is the key to decision making. It's a concept of trade-offs, the notion that making a decision requires giving up alternatives. It's just interesting to me that he sees it as the key to making a good decision. And I use the scale image almost to get us thinking of, you know, what is invisible on the scale? It's not always an equal weight, if that makes sense. So what does that mean for us? In following Christ, the commitment to pursue God above all things means forfeiting the fleeting pleasures of sin. Like he said, like the author of Hebrews writes in chapter 11 in the Hall of Faith that Moses, when he chose to be associated with the people of God, he chose to forfeit the fleeting pleasures of sin. So his life in Egypt and all the comfort and riches and power was the opportunity cost of his decision to lead the people of God into the wilderness. So that always helps me think, oh, there is a cost of following Christ. In relationships, saying yes to spending time with someone is fundamentally saying no to everyone else you could be with at the time. But conversely, keeping your options open means forfeiting the grounding benefits of relational commitments. For me in my life, there's a benefit if I have like a standing lunch date with someone every week on Thursday. We meet, and that has benefit in it. If I never made any commitments, I'd be forfeiting the opportunity cost would be the encouragement and groundingness that those commitments bring to your life. And then in work, investing in one task may cause you to miss out on other important ones. Think about the book Free to Focus that Michael Hyatt wrote about your attention is like, it's almost like money, like you have to trade in your attention. So it's thinking like, okay, is this task the one, you know, that I should be focusing on at the time? So understanding opportunity costs leads to better choices, improving time management, productivity, and focus in your professional endeavors. And just saying like, okay, there is a cost. I'm focusing on this thing. I'm giving up all the other things we can be focused on right now to accomplish this thing. So hopefully this one's a little easier to think of for everyone. When did you give up a positive benefit in favor of committing to a specific path or decision? Why was the trade-off? That's bonus. You don't have to share.
I think one that immediately comes to my mind was the decision to go back to grad school. That is a huge opportunity cost in time. That is a lot of nights and weekends that went away. But the positive benefit is professional development, future opportunities, good resume line item. So those are the positive benefits of going that route. But the opportunity costs, positive benefits are free time, being able to do things with people. But so far, I think the trade-off has been worth it. That's what comes to mind for me.
That's a great example.
I thought of something too right away. I think mine would be like transferring schools, because the thing I had to give up was to graduate earlier than when I'm gonna graduate this semester. But I do think it was really worth it that I came here and I've grown so much compared to if I was back in the Philippines. I was still in art school, but like I wouldn't have grown like on my own with Christ and even like living independently. So
That's wonderful. And I love how you're tying that to the principle of opportunity cost.
yeah.
I gave up being able to finish early, but the trade-off was like beyond worth what I was giving up. So that's a great example as well.
I had one that came to mind also. When I finished grad school, I got 2 job offers like within like a week and a half, I think. One of them was like, it's actually like one of the examples I think from my presentation of like the this or that. One of them was an internship with Disney, and it was like 10 months long, like not benefited, whatever. And then the other one was like salary benefited, but it was like in my hometown. And I was like really torn. Obviously, like what I gave up was like the opportunity to work for Disney, like getting in for free and like making community and like continuing like kind of like the dorm life vibe, because they have like dorms and potential jobs like in the future at Disney. But like I think long term, like starting the career and like having more stability like gave me opportunity ultimately like to go overseas, which was good. So I would say it was worth it. But yeah, I remember like sometimes I still will be like, what would have happened in my life if I had gone to Disney? Like you just find I don't know, I find myself musing on what that might have looked like.
It's
So.
almost like the multiverse, like
Yeah.
whole, like line of your future, like that exists somewhere.
There's a version of me that is like a high level executive at Disney. I would love that.
Just keep that in the multiverse.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the principle of opportunity cost actually means that there's not a multiverse.
It's really unfortunate.
Did you have an example?
I thought of when I got RA, I decided to like not continue my job. Ironically, next semester I'm working a job while being an RA. But like committing to RA allowed me to like learn it really well. I think versus if I was working my time with the Ben as like focused on the hall and doing that well.
I'd say, I guess in a similar lane with job decisions, accepting this role a year ago today, I had another offer on the table that was a position in Nashville, but it was a remote position, but you have to live there because you have to go in like once a week anyway. And I really value like in-person relationships, so it was like, it didn't seem as like there was a lot of opportunity cost, but I do have a lot of friends in Nashville as well, so I had to say no to like living with my best friend and like living that life too. Like we said, uphold values like we had talked about previously for professional relationships. I value you guys. And lastly, let's meet compound interest. Her superpower is multiplying your inputs made consistently over time. Compound interest represents a little bit invested today, tomorrow, and for decades, which doesn't just add up to the sum of what you put in, it will multiply into itself. It's a little bit different than just adding 1 + 1 + 1 is 3. It's 1 + 1 + 1, 5,000. Wow. Think of compound interest like a snowball rolling down the hill. As it rolls, it picks up more and more snow, getting bigger and gaining momentum as it goes. That's how you get in with 5,000 at the end. Small, seemingly insignificant actions that we take consistently, that being the key, over time can lead to significant and powerful results. One of my favorite quotes, maybe ever, is another philosopher, Aristotle. He says, Excellence is an art won by training and habituation. Habits. We do not act rightly because we have virtue or excellence, but rather we have those because we have acted rightly. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but habit. I think this kind of ties back to our values discussion as well, because excellence is not something that you can just be born with or have naturally, which is sad because I would just love to be perfect. But even perfection is not the goal. It's consistency, right? To show up and to do the small things, the virtuous things, right things. Then at the end of the day, you are virtuous, but it's because you have this track record behind you. And in life, we see this in our daily relationship with God. We've all heard that the daily practice of reading the Bible and lifting our attention to God in prayer throughout the day is what we should do. But really, if we apply the compound interest principle to this, it's a bit by bit investment in the compounding curve of being experientially close to the Creator God. And if you think of a compound interest curve, it's like nothing, 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 shoot, at the end, right? Being close to God is like not a small deal, you know? And it doesn't feel like that every day, getting up and reading the Bible, but over time, that's a really big return. I did put the word experientially in because, like, through Christ, like, He's made a way for us to be close to God, and we don't have to do something every single day. But you won't experience that unless you apply compound interest to your walk with Him, though it is available to you at any point because of Christ. Disclaimer. Relationships, it's the little investments into people that make you kind love persons. No matter the love language, it is most important to express them consistently and in time, just because things. So, hey, how are you? Like, hope you're doing well. Words of affirmation, small acts of service, quality time. These are all expressed consistently in little ways to compound to a beautiful relationship. And then in work, consider compound interest in your work life and talents. So your capabilities, what you're good at, will compound if you invest a little every day over the long haul. So practicing your skill, starting small, like this presentation today, I'm giving it to 4 people, but I would like to continue investing in that skill a little bit over time and maybe be really good at it. Instead of removing the principle, focus on building on the foundation of a skill ladder. So the phrase removing the principle in finance, it's say you invest $1,000 into a fund or whatever, and it compounds over time. You keep investing, it becomes $5,000. Removing the principle would be taking out the first $1,000. They tell you in finance, like, don't ever do that. Like, leave the principle in no matter what. Even though you might be tempted to be like, oh, well, like, I just take it out. It kind of interrupts the process of compound interest. And I think that could also apply to your skills. So if you started with graphic design or drawn on a video, like, focus on building on that foundation. I think it's very tempting to be like, oh, what if I just like went to med school all of a sudden and changed my path? But it's really cool to think of this as a skill ladder. Like, okay, I'm good at this thing. What can I build on top of that? And climb the ladder, like not corporately, but in your skills and your capabilities. Because that can compound into you being a boss. Okay, how about you? So when have the little daily or weekly or monthly rhythms in your life yielded outsized returns? And the bonus is, when could you start seeing those outcomes? It is probably not right way. Yeah,
We share.
My favorite quote is, "A daily task, if it be truly daily, is greater than even the most spasmodic Hercules."
Ooh.
Wow. And I tell that to Brad because he's my spasmodic Hercules. And he'll be like, oh no, am I being a spasmodic Hercules again? Like, yeah, I love you for it, but I just love like daily rhythms.
Where have you seen that?
Something I started is, as an introvert who's also extremely social and doesn't like saying no to social events, even though I like desperately need alone time, is when I lived in Charlottesville. To a lesser degree, I'm still doing it now, but when I lived in Charlottesville, one night a week, I called it like a Sabbath night, and I was like, I would go home, cook myself dinner, and then spend the day in my room, like journaling, like whatever would like give me like centering introvert time. And then one Saturday a month, and that's what I'm still doing. I like call it my introvert or like my Sabbath Saturday, and like I look forward to it every month. It's like we're traveling or work's busy or like family's crazy or whatever, but it's like I know that I will have an opportunity that's like built into my routine to like recenter, refocus, like journal, get my thoughts out, like go for a walk, like whatever I'm feeling that day. It's kind of like wherever the wind takes me is what I do that day, but it's by myself, which is like really good. As far as like starting to see the outcome, it was really hard at first. Like it was like an uphill battle because I had to say no to things like that opportunity cost. But I would say within a couple months, it was like I can't live without this now. That's what it feels like. So
Was that the outcome? Not being able to live without it?
that's what it feels like. I think the outcome was just like feeling less stressed, like as a baseline, because I knew that I would have the opportunity to like recenter. But then I think because I had this like main event that was recentering, I was like, no, like I can incorporate smaller recentering practices, like not just once a month. Like
Yeah.
if I have a free hour, I can journal now. I don't have to wait until my Sabbath day, or like I can go for a walk. Like that's my lunch break. Like I can go outside. Like I don't. I think by making it a big thing, it became less of a big thing.
Right.
If that makes sense.
It had
So,
ripple effects.
yeah.
Into the rest of your daily rhythms.
Right.
It's perfect.
Perfect.
Honestly, like thinking over this topic, like something that immediately jumps to mind for me is like, how many more little daily rhythms should I actually implement to get major returns? Because there are areas where I've seen like benefits. I think Sabbath's actually a big one for me as well. I try and do Sabbath like every week or every like Saturday at sunset to like Sunday at sunset, just kind of like traditionally kind of where it falls. It's been like really like a discipline at first to like set aside the time to not do things, to not be productive. But just like the wellness it brings and kind of like forcing you to like be more mindful with the rest of your time, but also have rest is like a really cool thing. Just like I feel like the returns are like throughout the week, which is cool, and then over time as well, which is like mental well-being. One also from the past, which I'm trying to get back into now, in the topic of trying to implement little daily rhythms that are healthy, is I used to write every single day. But I would like try and write like 2 like 8.5 by 11 pages, just like every day. And it didn't have to be good. I just had to write much. And I did like almost every day. It is amazing just like how much you end up writing when it's just 2 pages a day, which I felt like had huge benefits with just like my script writing and kind of like other things that I was doing for my job. So trying to get back into that. So on topic of, hey, there's benefit in it. There absolutely is. I just need to do more of it.
That example of writing, I actually use in my run through with Sheldon of like people that write wonderful books that we all would praise, like James Clear, we mentioned him or whatever. Like those people write every day.
Yeah.
And they started like, if you think about the skill ladder, they were a kid and they wrote these little like newsletters for their neighborhood and they print them on like cardstock and hand them out. That speaking of,
Okay.
they would go into middle school, high school, and write for. Oh, of course. No worries.
Welcome. Do you want to learn about daily rhythms?
Anyway, like your writer, that we would think that. In middle school, they were on the yearbook team and would write that. Like, you don't start with these big outcomes in your life. You start small. And those you have to consistent.
Yeah, well, it's actually really recent that I think I started it 2 weeks ago. So for my lunch break, instead of, because I would usually go home and eat there and then come back here. but what I've been doing is like kind of fast it, and I would go to the chapel instead and use that as my quiet time and like in a way fast. And then because I'm going to do something right now, but I've seen so much outside returns from it, like confirmations and like it's kind of crazy how like everything's been falling into place in my life. So that's like one daily rhythm that I kind of recently just started.
Beautiful.
That's really cool.
I want to do that.
I was gonna say this summer I started like the habit of taking evening walks around sunset every day. And at first I was like, oh, this is fun, like just like walk around campus. But I think what was really cool is like maybe like halfway through summer and like sometimes the way that I realized that the Lord was like using that as like preparation for being like a time of processing. Like originally just like, oh, I like being outside and taking a walk around campus, but then eventually when like I got bad news or whatever, using that time, it became like time to like think through things and talk to the Lord. And like I wouldn't have had those like that time if I hadn't like started earlier in the summer.
That's awesome.
So you started to see the outcome much later. Say for me, a story about this is when I was in high school, I was transferring my senior year, weird time to transfer, and I played basketball at my Christian school, and I love basketball, but I wasn't really good enough to like walk on to the new team. But my dad had like called the coach, and he had talked to him about me walking on, and my dad's like, "You're gonna do it." I was like, "I don't know how. I'm not good enough." And every day I would go shoot hoops, even if it was like getting dark, even if it was just 5-10 minutes. Most of the time it was like 20 or something. But I would go shoot hoops and I'm like, I'm gonna walk on this team. Like I'm gonna do it. And that outcome did happen, and it felt like insurmountable, like I can never do it. But I know it could not happen if I didn't like practice every day, and I feel like kids are taught that when it comes to sports, but it's cool when we see in adulthood those things really come true in those deeper, more important areas as well. So yeah. Now for the darker side of these realities. Lest you think it was all sunshine and rainbows with these truths, I did want to bring the flip side of the coin to light, just to say, like, since this is reality, like, there is a portion of these things that, if not heeded, could, like, hurt you, and that I've also seen in, like, people my age and my peers ignore the influencers. So for leverage, I've seen my peers ignore the importance of mentorship. So a lot of people I know like struggling with an issue, like I don't know what to do. I'm like, okay, well, like who could you talk to? Like, what are your parents saying? Or like, what are your mentors in your life saying? And they're like, well, we don't really have mentors. I just feel like that's an area of leverage that could be tapped into more, as well as skill building. A lot of seniors graduate, don't have like any skill, like they have their degree. Do you write? Is that your thing? Like design, like these are tangible things that you can take with you, but a piece of paper is just that. Delegation, this is a super fun one that I've been trying to learn more about, of like to implement leverage to get a better result. It's like, okay, am I the best person to complete this, or is someone else better equipped for it, and can I motivate them to join me in accomplishing that task, big or small? Networking, I feel like my generation doesn't really understand networking. They're like, oh, like, I don't want to feel like I'm getting something out of it, like asking for things. Networking is just like making relationships in a professional or realm, and it's best to do when you don't need a job. Like it's best to do that when you're not looking to get anything out of it, and you just want to build those relationships, because that leverage of your network will be important later, but also now, because those people can add value to you professionally and in your educational journey. So building with your professors, like a closer relationship, or with people in the industry that maybe you've never met before, but you can find on LinkedIn. Ask me about that. And then use of tech. We all know that the way that we use tech could be leveraged for good or for not good outcomes. There's more to say on that, I'm sure, but that's another area. For opportunity costs, we already talked a little bit about grad school, as John said. I never hear the principle of opportunity costs like come to mind when people are explaining their grad school decision. It's like, oh, well, like, you know, it'll be 2 years, only 2 years, and like I'll get paid for what you say, and like these are all the pros and here are the cons. But the opportunity cost is like everything you could be doing with those 2 years instead, or the money you could be making during that time that you're leaving on the table and saying no to. So just like implementing a pro con and also like pros of the thing you're saying no to. Choice of partner. So when you commit to someone, it's like you're fundamentally saying no to everyone else. And that's just a whole thing of like, is this just the person right in front of you to be in a relationship with, or is saying no to everyone else like completely worth it for them? And then time allocation. So we talked about productivity, opportunity cost comes into play with what you do with your time. So, okay, I'm gonna like, for example, go play basketball with friends. I'm fundamentally saying no to like all the other things that can better my life or my relationships. And then lack of commitment. This is like people I've seen like struggle to find a church, and it's like you're leaving the opportunity of like getting plugged in and making roots like on the table, and there's a benefit to that if you just kind of keep your options open, you're not receiving. That makes sense. Then lastly, compound interest. Networking again. This is something that compounds over time. You meet one person and they know 30 people, and then you meet them and it continues to grow. Exercise and sleep. This is huge for compound interest because you don't really see the result. Like you could go like pump some weights and be like, okay, I don't see any changes. But over time, like that habit will have drastic changes in sleep as well. Financial choices. This one is like directly tied to compound interest. So like investing, saving, that kind of thing compounds over time. But also like getting in a habit of like, oh, I always spend on this thing like more than I should, whatever. Skill building, we talked about that, but just like being willing to commit to the small actions to build your skills. Maybe over here, like people I've seen not building skills can start over here by, in a small sense, taking on a new skill. And then adulting, I hear a lot of people my age like want to like procrastinate adulting. I'm like, oh, like I would put that off as long as possible. Like I'll stay on my parents' insurance, like do everything I can to like avoid that. Rather, if adulting is taken like little by little, like okay, I'm gonna learn how to cook like one thing, or I'm going to learn how to pay this one bill. Like I'm gonna figure out my car insurance, and I don't care about everything else. It's just this one thing that can compound on itself. So by the time that you are fully independent and making all your own decisions and stuff, it doesn't seem so huge because you've taken it bit by bit. And I wish I had learned that a little bit earlier, because I definitely did desire to put off adulting. But I give myself grace to let it take the little steps to become what it is now. Follow, like, and subscribe. So this is my challenge to you, to like and subscribe these influencers to your life, because though they are written about in business books and things, it's not just for business people. Like we talked about, these apply to us all. And you won't find them on social media, but you'll find them in your life. And if you enjoyed this, everyone should go read The Slight Edge, because the subtitle is Turning Simple Disciplines into Massive Success and Happiness. And it talks about all of these principles. It's one of the best books I've read in that like big group of books, and I would recommend it as a next step for everyone in this room. Thank you very much. Good job. Now I will stop my video.